Now, you may be wondering, why are you watching a video of me attempting to play one of my favourite games, thanks to Matt Smith, Manic Miner, and failing miserably. I used to be quite good at this when I was a kid, in the 80s. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, it's a working Spectrum. There's nothing wrong with that. It's got music, you can hear sound. The keys are responding. See if I can complete this first level. I do remember that even though this is the first level, it was always quite tricky to get between those two trees. So there's a couple of things wrong with this which I shall show you very shortly. Come on, let's see if I can get to the end. Hey. Not my highest score in the first level, but never mind. Here we go. So what's wrong with this? There is a fault, so let me just reset it and I'll show you. Okay, so we're going to go into diagnostics. I've got a diagnostics card plugged into the back and we're going to run the diagnostics. So I'm going to fast forward this bit. So as you can see, all the tests, the upper and lower RAM, are working absolutely fine. So I'm going to go to number 1, which is the keys test. And we're going to test the individual keys. And you can probably see by now what the problem is. As soon as I get to this middle section, so let me look at that. So we've got, so the V and the B. So the C is working, you can see that. The N is working, but the V and the B is not. The F is working, and the J is working, but the G and the H is not. R and U are working, but T and Y are not. And 4 and 7 are working, but 5 and 6 are not. So this whole center section here is not working. Now there's a very common fault on these, which is the ribbon cable inside. This is a ZX81, which has a touch keypad on it, and on the back of this you can see this ribbon cable here, and this is the ribbon cable that's also inside the Spectrum, and they tend to fail. So let's have a closer look. Right, we now have the specky right in front of us. I've turned the desk lights on, so we'll just disconnect the cables out the back. There we go, and that's a detonator, which is the tester that I'm using. Very, very good little piece of kit. Now, when I bought this from eBay, the person who I bought it from has put 2 little dots on here, look. So he was indicating that these 2 keys aren't working, or this whole bank isn't working. So I think what we'll do is we'll take the back off. Now I'm just having a quick look at the back, just to see what I'm looking at. And the reason why I'm doing this, I'm just checking to see if the screws are scratched or not, and they're not. So these screws are not scratched, so I'm going to guess that this has never ever been opened in its life. No idea what these coloured dots are, but this looks immaculate. Doesn't look as if it's been opened in its life, so it soon will be. Okay, screwdriver time. Okay, that's the screws out. Oh, sorry, one more. And this underneath here is what I'm talking about. It's this ribbon cable here, look either side. It's that usually breaks down. So let's have a closer look at that. We'll just pull it out of the circuit board. There we go. Okay, quick look inside. What can we see inside? Well, okay, so there's the main CPU, which is a Z80 CPU. There's the ROM for it. There's what's called the ULA, which controls all the input and output. This is a custom chip, where the Z80 is just a Z80 chip that a lot of computers in the 80s used. This is the lower RAM down here, this is the upper RAM just there. And actually this looks very, very clean. It doesn't look as if it's been tampered with in the slightest, so I'm really pleased about this. This was a bit of a bargain from eBay. So let's have a look at this, and it's usually the ends here that break off. It's because they're so squashed underneath, they tend to crack. Let me bring my magnifying glass in. Let's have a closer look, see if I can see anything on the magnifying glass. Doesn't look too bad. It's definitely worn. Feels very, very old. And oh, hang on a minute. Look. Just, all right, see if I can show you. Right, I'm hoping that I can zoom in and show you, but just there is a crack across the ribbon just there. And I'm wondering if that's broken the trace. Looks very suspect. Okay, if you can see that, that's cracked. Right, to prove that, somewhere on my bench I have another keyboard. Bear with me for a moment, I've got another specky keyboard around here somewhere. Hang on. Another specky keyboard I have found here. So this is our original one with the two little dots on it. So I'll put that to one side. This is the other one, which I think is working okay. So what I'm going to do, this was off a working Spectrum, but what I had to do is to cut the ribbon back a bit here. So it is a little bit shorter than normal, which makes it a bit more awkward, as you can see. Right, that's that one in. And that's that one in. Right. If they stay in, let's get connected up and we can run that test again. Right, I've slightly cheated because I've booted it up without you having to sit through the testing that it does. Just turn the lights out. Okay, so there we've got the screen up now with the test. So let's do number one, which is the keyboard test. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 6 with the 2 that was playing up. 7, 8, 9, 0. What else was it? F and G, which are working alright. So F, G, H, J, C, V, B, N. And as you can see, they are lighting up correctly. So we're using my test keyboard here. It looks like I was right by guessing it was the ribbon cable that was faulty. Good. Okay, watch your eyes because the light is coming back on. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Light is back on. Okay, let's spin the camera around again. Okay, right, disconnect that. So we know now it is definitely the keyboard connectors, these, that stopped working, and I would say I'm going to guess it's definitely going to be this break in the corner here. So we need to replace that. I see this is the later keyboard. I could also tell it's a later one because of that number there. There's a number 7 on the ULA. And the number 7 on the ULA does mean, I think the number 7 is the latest or the later one. But also, I've noticed, and I've never worked on one of these before, but these have metal tabs which will hold on this metal top. Normally they're stuck down. I mean, this may be stuck down, this top one, but we need to undo those and get the keyboard out and replace the membrane in there. We can do some other things while we're here as well. So on this there is a 9 volt to 5 volt regulator, which is just here. Now the problem is with these create a lot of heat, so we can replace that like we did on the ZX81. We can replace that with a modern switching regulator, which means we can get rid of this massive heatsink that goes across here. Something that we should also do is replace the capacitors throughout the board as well. And finally we can also do, like we did on the ZX81, we can change the video output as well from here. Just before we put this to one side, one thing I've also noticed is that we did talk about the ULA being a later version, but also down here we can see it's issue 4A, 1983, is that? There we go. Right, okay, so let's put the actual specky to one side and we'll bring the keyboard back to have a look at that. So, oops. So let's have a look and see what we can do with this. First thing is, how do I get these up? Fairly easy by the looks of things. Just get the pliers out. One thing I don't want to do is to break these off. Right, okay, so as I thought, this cover is still stuck down. So let's get the blower on. So I've got a heat here, so I'll get that one up. And we also need the switcher. So, okay. Just gently heat up this. That was the rubber keyboard. I want to heat up. The boys have never used quite a small tip on this, so I'm going to concentrate the heat. Just where this is. Right, so that's it. Oh, actually, there's no sticky there. So ignore everything that I just said about sticky. And it looks like we can just very gently pop that off. Good, because I don't like those sticky things. There we go, one cover off. Oh, there are some little sticky pads just underneath there, but they're very warm. Good. Oh dear, look at that. Look at the state of that. Wow. Okay, I think that needs a good clean in the sink, that, with some nice hot soapy water. So this is the keyboard membrane, very similar to the ZX81 that we did previously. So let's see if we can pop this out. There we go. Let's cut that out and we can have another look at this brake. Yes, definitely cracked there. Right, anyway, this is the old one. It doesn't work. We know we tested it on the other one, so let's file that in bin number 13. Okay, so the actual plastic underneath doesn't look too bad. I was just looking to see if the actual case is warped, but it doesn't seem to be. It seems to be quite flat. We've got a little bit of dirt down here. This though is disgusting, so we need to have a very good clean on that. Oh dear, very ingrained dirt. Look at that. It's almost a cobweb there, isn't it? And then this doesn't look too bad either. So I think we can, again, we can clean the underside of this, clean the top side of this. We can get rid of those sticky labels he put on, or she put on, I don't really know. Got a little mark there, but that's okay. Right, cleaning then. Let's get it cleaned. Right, we'll leave that for a while and let it dry off. So let's have a look at some of the items that I've bought. First of all, this, which is 4 voltage regulators. I bought 4 because they are quite cheap, and these will just replace the 5-volt regulator. That's all ready on board. We'll just desolder the other one and pop this one in its place, and I'll do links to all this equipment, all these parts down in the description. But, I thought I'd get 4 at the same time because the postage was the same. So there's the voltage regulators. This is a capacitor kit, and it also includes the capacitor that we need for the composite video adapter as well. So we've got a couple of transistors and a capacitor. I know there's different versions of what to do with that, but we're just going to use the capacitor. That's a DC conversion for issue 2. We're not going to be using that. And these are the capacitors for the main board. So that's that little kit. I just had to stop the video because I realised that my address was on this envelope, so that's why it jumped there a little bit. So I've taken my address off now, and this then should be a new keyboard membrane. So let us very carefully open this up. Just talk amongst yourselves while I do this. Right. Thought it wasn't in there for a moment. There we go. One brand new membrane to go on. So that is the same. This is my temporary working one, so that's the same as this, and that will sit on the underside of the case like that, so that will go on the other keyboard once it's dried out. So there we go, that's the components that we've got ready to go into it. Right, let's just clear the bench for a moment, get rid of all this stuff, and come back to that shortly. The keyboard it's been a few days back, by the way, but the keyboard now is nicely dried out. Left it in the conservatory for a few days, so that's ready now to go back. I thought at first that these were sticky pads, but it's not. It's just is it brass or something like that? Something like that. Anyway, so that's ready to go on, and I've cleaned up these as well. Now, it's usually this white bit that gets worn off, but that looks quite nice on there, so not been worn. So that will go, membrane will go on, that will go onto there, and then that will go on top. But we're not going to do that now. What we're going to do instead is right, so there's a couple of things we need to do on this. We need to change the regulator here. We need to change the capacitors. Always best to change the capacitors when you get a chance. And also we need to change this from an old type of tuner for a telly to, I think it's called a composite video mod, which is a technical term. So let's first of all have a look underneath. I don't think any work's been done on this because all the round chips are the same. Nothing looks out of order in the slightest. Where's that other screw? I know there's two on this. Well, I think there's two on this anyway. No, there's only one. It was stuck. That could do with a bit of a clean. Clean that off later on. So what we need to do is change this to what's called a composite video mod. So we'll just pop off this top, he says. There we go. And what we simply have to do with this is, so let's bring the light over. So what we have to do with this, stop the flashing, thank you, is we disconnect the signal cable here from that resistor, and then we replace this cable just here with the capacitor. That's the signal that comes from the ULA, which is here. So we'll disconnect that. I think it comes through a couple of transistors here or that chip there, but we'll disconnect that. This is a 5-volt feed, we'll disconnect that as well. And then on here, we'll disconnect that resistor from there, and then we'll put the capacitor on it. So I think first thing we need to do is to warm up the soldering iron. Right, first thing we have to do is zoom in a bit. You have to just disconnect that from there, like so. And on the underside, we have to unsolder these two. Right, that's a 5-volt feed out the way. Okay, I think I'm going to need my magnifying glass. Okay, that's got that out of the way. So I just bent those two cables over there like that. In our kit, that came with the capacitors. There we go, this is the kit. Okay, so we've got a capacitor here. The negative, which is the marked with the shading on that side, the shorter leg, that goes through there, through that one, which is protected by the plastic, and connects to the output socket plug thing. Here we go. So I'm just going to pull that in. And just bend the leg a bit so it just sits nicely on there. Grab a bit of solder. Grab a better bit of solder. Right, let's put that on there, and then we can put the other leg through the circuit board. Like so. And that can be soldered up. And we can chop off the remainder of the leg. like so. And that's the video mod done. There we go, that'll just sit at the side there. So let's better just test that to make sure that it's working okay. Right, I've put it on a duster just to protect it in case there's any bits of metal on my worktop. And that just stops it from shorting out or anything. So let's have a spin round so you can see the telly. Turn the lights off. Just to show you, I've got the different type of connection. This isn't a telly connection. Is it called phono or something like that? Right. Okay, let's switch it on. Yep, there we go. So that's, and actually the picture is a lot clearer than it was using the TV tuner. Obviously I've got no keyboard plugged into it or anything, so I can't test that. So that works okay. Watch your eyes, the light is coming back on in 3, 2, 1. Okay, the light is back on. So I think that will just about do us for part 1. So on part 1, we know that the circuit board was faulty, so we've got a new circuit board for the keyboard. So that will go onto the keyboard and we can replace that. We've replaced the video output for the composite video mod, so that's okay, that's that done. So in part 2, what we'll do in part 2 is we'll replace the voltage regulator, we'll replace the capacitors, and then we'll rebuild the keyboard and put everything back together. Hope you liked it. That's part 1 of this Spectrum repair and rebuild. If you like what I do, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again soon.